already has a nuclear weapon, first tested during the Bush administration, which basically means there is no viable military solution for the United States to impose. So, Iran is the last place where the neocons can get the kind of war they've wanted, the muscular assertion of military dominance. And if that goes away, they are left with nothing. Joining me now is Matt Duss, Middle East policy analyst for the Center for American Progress, a left-leaning think tank. Matt, a dark day in the halls of neocondom today.
A dark day for neoconservatives and a great day for America.
Those usually go together.
Those usually go together. No, I think I'm glad that you played that clip earlier about President Obama, back when he was running for office in that debate with John McCain, because I think that is a central argument of his presidency when it comes to foreign policy. He started and won a very important argument that had to do with the appropriate uses of American power. He was criticized by conservatives, certainly, even by some Democrats. He was called naive. But I think now we've seen the results. He has effectively deployed all the tools of American power, economic, political, diplomatic, military, and he has advanced America's security by talking to our enemies.
There's a really interesting political dimension domestically to see play out here. And you and I think, both are on the same page about how we feel about the architects of the Iraq War and the Bush Doctrine, etc. There has been a kind of insurgent wing in the Republican Party, the Tea Party base, that has shown some signs of breaking with a kind of neoconservative orthodoxy that still controls the upper echelons of Republican conservative think tanks and political thinking. And the big question for me is, this strikes me as a huge test case. What does Rand Paul say about this? What does Ted Cruz and Mike Lee say about it? These were folks that kind of grabbed the mantle of skepticism of use of drones during Rand Paul's drone filibuster. They've been much more open to, I think, very legitimate critiques of the overreach of the surveillance state. Well, here's an opportunity to support the peaceful resolution, diplomatic resolution of a standoff with an adversary. What do we hear from them?
Right. I don't know that I've heard anything from them immediately, just recently. But I think Rand Paul, in past speeches, he made a big foreign policy speech a few months ago at the Heritage Foundation that was, very much distancing himself from neoconservatism, and speaking in a much more sort of, less interventionist. I wouldn't call it isolationist. I think that term is thrown around way too much. But I think, as you said, the thing is that for all the failures of neoconservatism, and we could fill up a whole show talking about them, they still control the commanding heights of policymaking and the elite discourse on the conservative side. But we have seen a challenge from people like Rand Paul and others. And I think I would also note this, which I think is really significant. Last week, Marco Rubio, who previously had very closely identified with the neoconservatives, gave a foreign policy speech at the American Enterprise Institute, which is kind of the mothership of neoconservatism. But he tried to triangulate away from neoconservatism. He was saying, well, okay, there are the interventionists, and then there are these isolationists, and I want to be somewhere in the middle. Now, even if this is really only new wine or old wine in new bottles, which I think it is, it's still very telling to me that he felt the need to kind of distance himself from that sort of ideology.
And I think we're going to see. I think we'll get some polling on this. We've already seen some polling indicating Americans support this. I think this is going to be broadly popular. The third point in this triangle here are the Democrats, congressional Democrats. We just had Eliot Engel, congressman from New York. Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, very critical of the deal. There are Democrats in Congress, in Senate and House, who don't like this deal and are going to push for sanctions. How much room are they going to give this deal to work?
Well, I think even if you look at the statement from Harry Reid on, I think it was Thursday or Friday and today, as of the end of last week, he was definitive that when they come back from Thanksgiving, they were going to move on new sanctions. We got a deal over the weekend, and Harry Reid is a bit more circumspect. He's a bit more measured right now. So I think, given the significance and the potentially era-defining, importance of this agreement, the implications for U.S. security in the region and the world are huge.
It is absolutely bonkers and ridiculous if the Senate goes ahead on a vote for sanctions that are explicitly, that any sanctions in the 6-month term of the deal are explicitly barred. That is ridiculous. Matt Duss from the Center for American Progress, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Chris.
Coming up, a 30-year-old former Giuliani campaign